Inigo was talking too. It was still 5:42 when he whispered, "I'm sorry, Father." Count Rugen heard the words, but nothing really connected until he saw the sword still held in Inigo's hand. "You're that little Spanish brat I taught a lesson to," he said, coming closer now, examining the scars. "It's simply incredible. Have you been chasing me all these years only to fail now? I think that's the worst thing I ever heard of. How marvelous." Inigo could say nothing. The blood fauceted from his stomach. Count Rugen drew his sword. "Sorry, Father. I'm sorry." Wait, I'm confused. Oh, okay, I see what's happening. All right. Count Rugen drew his sword. "Sorry, Father. I'm sorry." "I don't want your sorry. My name is Domingo Montoya, and I died for that sword, and you can keep your sorry. If you were going to fail, why didn't you die years ago and let me rest in peace? And then Macpherson was after him too. Spaniards. I never should have tried to teach a Spaniard. They're dumb, they forget. What do you do with a wound? How many times did I teach you? What do you do with a wound?" "Cover it," Inigo said, and he pulled the knife from his body and stuffed his left fist into the bleeding. Inigo's eyes began to focus again. Not well, not perfectly, but enough to see the Count's blade as it approached his heart, and Inigo couldn't do much with the attack, parry it vaguely, push the point of the blade into his left shoulder where it did no unendurable harm. Count Rugen was a bit surprised that his point had been deflected, but there was nothing wrong with piercing a helpless man's shoulder. There was no hurry when you had him. Macpherson was screaming again, "Spaniards! Give me a Pollock any time. At least the Pollocks remember to use the wall when they have one. Only the Spaniards would forget to use a wall." Slowly, inch by inch, Inigo forced his body up the wall, using his legs just for pushing, letting the wall do all the supporting that was necessary. Count Rugen struck again, but for any number of reasons, most probably because he hadn't expected the other man's movement. He missed the heart and had to be content with driving his blade through the Spaniard's left arm. Inigo didn't mind. He didn't even feel it. His right arm was where his interest lay, and he squeezed the handle, and there was strength in his hand, enough to flick out at the enemy. And Count Rugen hadn't expected that either, so he gave a little involuntary cry and took a step back to reassess the situation. Power was flowing up from Inigo's heart to his right shoulder, and down from his shoulder to his fingers, and then into the great six-fingered sword, and he pushed off from the wall then, with a whispered, "Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And they crossed swords. The Count went for the quick kill, the inverse Bonetti. No chance. "Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Again they crossed, and the Count moved into a Marazzo defense, because the blood was still streaming. Inigo shoved his fist deeper into himself. "Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." The Count retreated around the billiard table. Inigo slipped in his own blood. The Count continued to retreat, waiting. "Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." He dug with his fist, and he didn't want to think what he was touching and pushing and holding into place, but for the first time he felt able to try a move, so the six-fingered sword flashed forward, and there was a cut down one side of Count Rugen's cheek. Another flash, another cut, parallel, bleeding. "Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." "Stop saying that." The Count was beginning to experience a decline of nerve. Inigo drove for the Count's left shoulder, as the Count had wounded his. Then he went through the Count's left arm, at the same spot the Count had penetrated his. "Hello." Stronger now. "Hello. Hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." "No. Offer me money." "Everything," the Count said. "Power too, promise me that." "All I have and more, please." "Offer me anything I ask for." Yes, say it." "I want Domingo Montoya, you son of a bitch," and the six-fingered sword flashed again. The Count screamed. That was just to the left of your heart, Inigo struck again. Another scream. That was below your heart. Can you guess what I'm doing? Cutting my heart out. You took mine when I was 10. I want yours now. We are lovers of justice, you and I. What could be more just than that? The Count screamed one final time and then fell dead of fear. Inigo looked down at him. The Count's frozen face was petrified and ashen, and the blood still poured down the parallel cuts. His eyes bulged wide, full of horror and pain. It was glorious, if you like that kind of thing. Inigo loved it. It was 5:50 when he staggered from the room, heading he knew not where or for how long, but hoping only that whoever had been guiding him lately would not desert him now. I'm going to tell you something once, and then whether you die or not is strictly up to you, Wesley said, lying pleasantly on the bed. Across the room, the prince held the sword high. What I'm going to tell you is this. Drop your sword, and if you do, then I will leave with this baggage here. He glanced at Buttercup. And you will be tied up, but not fatally, and will soon be free to go about your business. And if you choose to fight, well then, we will not both leave alive. I expect to breathe a while, the prince said. I think you are bluffing. You have been prisoner for months, and I myself killed you less than a day ago, so I doubt that you have much might left in your arm. Possibly true, Wesley agreed. And when the moment comes, remember that. I might indeed be bluffing. I could in fact be lying right here because I lack the strength to stand. All that, weigh carefully. You are only alive now because you said to the pain. I want that phrase explained. My pleasure. It was 5:52 now. 3 minutes left. He thought he had 18. He took a long pause, then started speaking. Surely you must have guessed I am no ordinary sailor. I am, in fact, Roberts himself. I am, in fact, not the least surprised or awed. To the pain means this. If we duel and you win, death for me. If we duel and I win, life for you. But life on my terms. Meaning? It could all still be a trap. His body was at the ready. There are those who credit you with skill as a hunter, though I find that doubtful. The prince smiled. The fellow was baiting him. Why? And if you hunt well, then surely when you tracked your lady, you must have begun at the Cliffs of Insanity. A duel was fought there, and if you noted the movements and the strides, you would know that those were masters battling. They were. Remember this. I won that fight. And I am a pirate. We have our special tricks with swords. It was 5:53. I am not unfamiliar with steel. The first thing you lose will be your feet, Wesley said. The left, then the right, below the ankle. You will have stumps available to use within 6 months. Then your hands, at the wrist. They heal somewhat quicker. 5 months is a fair average. And now Wesley was beginning to be aware of strange changes in his body, and he began talking faster and louder. Next your nose, no smell of dawn for you, followed by your tongue, deeply cut away, not even a stump left, and then your left eye. And then my right eye, and then my ears, and shall we get on with it? The prince said. It was 5:54. Wrong, Wesley's voice rang across the room. Your ears you keep, so that every shriek of every child at seeing your hideousness will be yours to cherish, every babe that weeps in fear at your approach, every woman that cries, Dear God, what is that thing, will reverberate forever with your perfect ears. That is what to the pain means. It means that I leave you to live in anguish, in humiliation, in freakish misery, until you can stand it no more. So there you have it, pig. There you know, you miserable, vomitous mass. And I say this now, and live or die, it's up to you. Drop your sword. The sword crashed to the floor. It was 5:55. Wesley's eyes rolled up into his head, and his body crumpled and half-pitched from the bed, and the prince saw that and went to the floor, grabbing for his sword, starting to bring it high, when Wesley cried out, Now you will suffer, to the pain. His eyes were open again, open and blazing. I'm sorry, I meant nothing, I didn't look, and the prince dropped his sword a second time. Tie him, Wesley said to Buttercup. Be quick about it, use the curtain sashes. They look enough to hold him. You would do it so much better, Buttercup replied. I'll get the sashes, but I really think you should do the actual tying. Woman, Wesley roared, you are the property of dread Pirate Roberts, and you do what you're told. Buttercup gathered the sashes and did what she could with tying up her husband. Humperdinck lay flat while she did it. He seemed strangely happy. I wasn't afraid of you, he said to Wesley. I dropped my sword because it will be so much more pleasure for me to hunt you down. You think so, do you? I doubt you'll find us. I'll conquer Gilder, and then I'll come for you. The corner you least expect, when you round it, you will find me waiting. I am the king of the sea. I await you with pleasure. He called out to Buttercup. Is he tied yet? Sort of. There was movement at the doorway, and then Inigo was there. Buttercup cried out at the blood. Inigo ignored her, looked around. Where's Fezzik? Isn't he with you? Wesley said. Inigo leaned for a moment against the nearest wall, gathering strength. Then he said, Help him up, to Buttercup. Wesley? Buttercup replied. Why does he need me to help him? Because he has no strength. Now do what you're told, Inigo said. And then suddenly on the floor the prince began struggling mightily with the sashes, and he was tied, and tied well, but power and anger were both on his side. You were bluffing. I was right the first time, Humperdinck said, and Inigo said, That was not a clever thing of me to let slip. I'm sorry. And Wesley said, Did you at least win your battle? And Inigo said, I did. And Wesley said, Let us try to find some place to defend ourselves. At least perhaps we can go together. And Buttercup said, I'll help you up, poor darling. And Fezzik said, Oh, Inigo, I need you. Please, Inigo, I'm lost and miserable and frightened, and I just need to see a friendly face. They moved slowly to the window. Wandering lost and forlorn through the prince's garden was Fezzik, leading the 4 giant whites. Here, Inigo whispered. 3 friendly faces, Fezzik said, kind of bouncing up and down on his heels, which he always did when things were looking up. Oh, Inigo, I just ruined everything, and I got so lost when I stumbled into the stables and found these pretty horses. I thought 4 was how many of them there were, and 4 was how many of us there were, too, so if we found the lady... Hello, lady. And I thought, why not take them along with me in case we all ever run into each other? He stopped a moment, considering. And I guess we did. Inigo was terribly excited. Fezzik, you thought for yourself, he said. Fezzik considered that a moment, too. Does that mean you're not mad at me for getting lost? If only we had a ladder, Buttercup began. Oh, you don't need a ladder to get down here, Fezzik said. It's only 20 feet. I'll catch you. Only do it one at a time, please. There's not enough light, so if you all come at once, I might miss. So while Humperdinck struggled, they jumped one at a time, and Fezzik caught them gently and put them on the whites. And he still had the key, so they could get out the front gate, and except for the fact that Yellen had regrouped the brute squad, they would have gotten out without any trouble at all. As it was, when Fezzik unlocked the gate, they saw nothing but armed brutes in formation, Yellen at their lead, and no one smiling. Wesley shook his head. I am dry of notions. Child's play, of all people, Buttercup said, and she led the group toward Yellen. The Count is dead. The prince is in grave danger. Hurry now, and you may yet save him. All of you, go. Not a brute moved. They obey me, Yellen said, and I am in charge of enforcement. And I, Buttercup said. I, she repeated, standing up in the saddle, a creature of infinite beauty and eyes that were starting to grow frightening. I, she said for the 3rd and last time, am the queen. There was no doubting her sincerity, or power, or capability for vengeance. She stared imperiously across the brute squad. Save Humperdinck, one brute said, and with that they all dashed into the castle. Save Humperdinck, Yellen said, the last one left, but clearly his heart wasn't in it. Actually, that was something of a fib, Buttercup said as they began to ride for freedom, seeing as Lotharin hasn't officially resigned, but I thought I am the queen sounded better than I am the princess. All I can say is I'm impressed, Wesley told her. Buttercup shrugged. I've been going to royalty school 3 years now. Something had to rub off. She looked at Wesley. You all right? I was worried about you back on the bed there. Your eyes rolled up into your head and everything. I suppose I was dying again. So I asked the Lord of permanent affection for the strength to live the day. Clearly the answer came in the affirmative. I didn't know there was such a fellow, Buttercup said. Neither did I, in truth, but if he didn't exist, I didn't want to either. The 4 great horses seemed almost to fly toward Florin Channel. It appears to me as if we're doomed, then, Buttercup said. Wesley looked at her. Doomed, madam? To be together, until one of us dies. I've done that already, and I haven't the slightest intention of ever doing it again, Wesley said. Buttercup looked at him. Don't we sort of have to sometime? Not if we promise to outlive each other, and I make that promise now. Buttercup looked at him. Oh, my Wesley, so do I. And they lived happily ever after, my father said. Wow, I said. He looked at me. You're not pleased? No, it's just, it came so quick, the ending. It surprised me. I thought there'd be a little more, is all. I mean, was the pirate ship waiting, or was that just a rumor, like it said? Complain to Mr. Morgenstern. And they lived happily ever after is how it ends. The truth was, my father was fibbing. I spent my whole life thinking it ended that way, up until I did this abridgment. And then I glanced at the last page. This is how Morgenstern ends it. Buttercup looked at him. Oh, my Wesley, so do I. From behind them, suddenly, closer than they imagined, they could hear the roar of Humperdinck. Stop them! Cut them off! And they were admittedly startled, but there was no reason for worry. They were on the fastest horses in the kingdom, and the lead was already theirs. However, this was before Inigo's wound reopened, and Wesley relapsed again, and Fezzik took the wrong turn, and Buttercup's horse threw a shoe, and the night behind them was filled with the crescendoing sound of pursuit. That's Morgenstern's ending, a Lady or the Tiger type effect. This was before the Lady or the Tiger, remember. Now, he was a satirist, so he left it that way, and my father was, I guess, I realized too late, a romantic, so he ended it another way. Well, I'm an abridger, so I'm entitled to a few ideas of my own. Did they make it? Was the pirate ship there? You can answer it for yourself, but for me, I say yes, it was. And yes, they got away, and got their strength back, and had lots of adventures, and more than their share of laughs. But that doesn't mean I think they had a happy ending, either. Because in my opinion, anyway, they squabbled a lot, and Buttercup lost her looks eventually, and one day Fezzik lost a fight, and some hotshot kid whipped Inigo with a sword, and Wesley was never able to really sleep sound because of Humperdinck maybe being on the trail. I'm not trying to make this a downer, understand? I mean, I really do think that love is the best thing in the world, except for cough drops. But I also have to say, for the umpty-umpth time, that life isn't fair. It's just fairer than death, that's all. New York City, February 1973. And that is kind of the end of the book. There's still a bunch more pages, but I'll save those for another day. So anyway, that was a good book. And yes, I applaud as well, because I enjoyed it right up to the end. I like the fact that there are sort of multiple endings. Like the father's idea and Morgenstern's ending, and then the abridger's ending. I like the way that's done, because it kind of feels. Thank you for reading it. Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. I enjoyed reading it out loud. I feel like I experienced it a little differently from like if I were just reading it silently to myself. So this is a cool experience for me as well. Having the multiple endings almost makes it feel like a little bit Tolkien-ish. Like with that, it's sort of like the story just keeps on going, because he wraps up all of the different characters' stories. But with this, it's sort of like all of the characters are together at the end. So he just gives like 3 different versions of what the ending could look like, and lets you sort of pick which one you want. And I kind of like that too. It makes it a little tiny bit of a like choose your own adventure sort of thing. I did want to say the time thing, the countdown. I liked that style of sort of increasing tension by like putting it on a clock and being like, time's ticking, you got to get this accomplished, and if you don't, what the stakes are. I think that was done earlier as well, but in a different way. It was when Humperdinck insulted the Guilder princess. Before things were established with Buttercup, he was supposed to like marry this Guilder princess. But he found out that she was bald, and so he was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna marry a bald princess." So he was like, "You're out." But the way that it was set up was like time was counting down to a specific moment, and then there was chaos, and I like that sort of parallel of like that one went horribly, and this one like things went exactly the way that you wanted them to go. So it sort of like brought things full circle with like the timed countdown aspect. I also thought that giving Buttercup that moment of where she was able to just be like, "You're gonna do what I say because I'm the queen now," definitely gives her more dimension and lets her kind of complete her arc as well, which I did feel like in the movie that was one area where it was a little bit weaker. She's a little flat. Girl boss. Yeah. In the movie she's not quite as decisive, and she doesn't have that character growth that comes to like a satisfying ending. She just sort of gets to the end and it's like, "Oh, she's rescued and we're going to escape on the horses." And then like that's where it ends. So I like the fact that she has that moment of like, I have something I can contribute to this team. Whereas like the one guy is the strength and the other guy is the sword fighting, and the other guy is, Wesley is the brains now of the operation. And she is like, okay, but I have the power and I'm going to tell these guys to go get out of our way. It gives her like equality, I think, on the team. Whereas I felt like in the movie, she was much more of like an object to be like capture the flag kind of a situation. So yeah, I did like, and I think that was what I said to a couple people. We were discussing on Discord, something about Princess Bride, and that was one of the things I feel like she has much more dimension in the book than in the movie. But yeah, the fact that they pulled out the horses, I think in the movie they're just random horses, but in the book they're specifically the fastest horses in the land that the prince owns. They've been bred specifically to be fast. And they set that up much earlier in the book, and so to have it come around again, it like brings it to completion. So all in all, everything I think is like it comes for full circle, and I really like that sort of feeling of like all of the knots are tied up in a nice, satisfying bow, and I think that's one area where like when I'm writing stuff on my own, I will hammer things like that until I can get it to like everything has to be wrapped up, because that's really satisfying for me, and I think hopefully that's also satisfying for the readers. So yeah, satisfying. I'm satisfied by this book. There is still another the next chapter is called Buttercup's Baby, an explanation. And then the chapter after that is Buttercup's Baby, S. Morgenstern's glorious examination of courage matched against the death of the heart, abridged by William Goldman. And according to the cover of the book, it says it includes the first chapter of the long-lost sequel, Buttercup's Baby. But because this is a fictional book that doesn't actually exist, that he's not actually abridging, there is no sequel, and so it's just extra stuff that he wrote at the end of the book. So I would consider it to still be part of the book, but it's like an epilogue sort of situation. Hi there. Thanks for joining our book club. If you'd like to join the conversation, I would love it if you would leave us a comment. And if you'd like to see more, check out the playlist.